At 3:17 a.m., the house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the slow ticking of a clock that had outlived most of the furniture. On the kitchen table sat a thin folder, cream-colored, unmarked, the kind that looks harmless until you open it. Inside was what people would later call the final report. Not a death notice, not a goodbye letter, but the last written record of a private storm that had been raging for years, hidden behind smiles, premieres, and polite answers to questions no one ever meant. Rob Reiner has spent a lifetime telling stories about love, resilience, and unlikely hope. But this story didn't come from a script. It came from the woman who stood beside him when the cameras were off, when the applause faded, when the world expected strength and got silence instead. And when that report surfaced quietly, without fanfare, it revealed details that were never meant for public consumption. Details that make you stop and ask how much we really know about the people we think we know. The first pages don't accuse, they confess. There's a description of exhaustion that sleep couldn't touch, of days that felt heavy before they even began. She writes about walking through rooms filled with light and feeling invisible, like a ghost moving through her own life. The words are careful, almost apologetic, as if she's afraid of burdening anyone by telling the truth. Why do people who carry the most pain always seem the most worried about causing it? Then comes a moment frozen in time. A night drive through Los Angeles. Windows down, radio off. She describes gripping the steering wheel too tightly. Not because of traffic, but because her thoughts felt louder than the engine. There's a line that lingers long after you read it. I wondered if anyone would notice if I just kept driving. It's not a threat. It's a question, and questions can be more unsettling than answers. Another section reveals the quiet rituals she developed to cope. Notes written and torn up. Phone alarms labeled with gentle reminders to breathe, to drink water, to step outside. She documents how the pressure of being fine became a performance she rehearsed daily. At events, she smiled. At home, she unraveled. How many times have we mistaken composure for peace? Midway through the report, the tone shifts. There's a scene described in stark detail, standing in a bathroom, staring at a mirror, trying to recognize the woman looking back. She lists 7 observations, 7 truths she could no longer ignore. They aren't sensational. They're disturbing because they're ordinary. The body keeping score, the mind replaying old conversations, the fear of becoming a headline instead of a person, the guilt of having so much and still hurting, the loneliness that fame can't fix, the way time starts to feel borrowed, and the realization that silence, once protective, had become dangerous. There's also love in these pages. Deep, complicated love. She writes about Rob's laugh echoing down the hallway, about shared jokes that never got old, about the way he listened even when he didn't know how to help. This isn't a story about blame. It's about the limits of love when faced with an invisible adversary. If love is powerful, why does it sometimes feel like it isn't enough? Toward the end, the report becomes less about documenting pain and more about asking for understanding. Not pity, not spectacle. Understanding. She questions the way stories are simplified, how headlines crave neat endings when real life is messy and unresolved. She wonders what would happen if vulnerability were treated as courage instead of weakness. Would more people speak? Would fewer suffer alone? The final lines don't offer closure. They offer responsibility, a reminder that behind every public figure is a private human being, negotiating battles we don't see. The report ends not with a period, but with a pause space left intentionally blank. An invitation, perhaps, for the rest of us to fill with empathy, with attention, with better questions. So when you hear about a final report, what do you imagine? An ending, or a beginning we were too distracted to notice? How many folders like this are sitting on kitchen tables right now, unopened, waiting for someone to care enough to look inside? And if the most disturbing details aren't the secrets themselves, but the fact that they're so familiar, what does that say about us?